devotion. I hope one way or another you got to experience the Ascension service. You can check that out online if you haven't yet. But for now, here on this May 9th, we pick up Psalm 106 where we left off, shortly after the psalmist has begun his litany of all the sinful failings of the Israelites throughout the history of the Old Testament. The first sin that we looked at yesterday was the sin of unbelief. Today we continue as we look at Israel's sin of discontentment or complaining. As soon as they left Sinai, they started to complain. I guess there's nothing new under the sun. And God's anger was kindled. Literally, the fire of the Lord burned among them and consumed some of the outlying parts of the camp. Then, after that, different foreigners started to complain that were part of the group of Israelites that were wandering in the wilderness. And they started to crave fancy food. And the people of Israel also. And they wept and complained that they didn't have meat or fish or cucumbers or melons or leeks or onions or garlic. Never mind that they were slaves in Egypt. Plus, they complained that they were sick and tired of manna. So God sent them what they asked for, and they got it. The wind brought in quail from the sea, tons of quail, and they gorged themselves on the quail. And while the meat was yet in between their teeth, the anger of the Lord was once again kindled, and he struck down the people with a very great plague. The King James Version of Psalm 106, verse 13, broadens the application of the pattern that is revealed in Numbers 11. It says very aptly, "And he gave them their request, but sent leanness into their soul." This is the same pattern found in the parable of the prodigal son and in the account of the history of Lot in the Old Testament. However, in Jesus and his perfect obedience, there is the perfect contrast to our sinful failings. When Jesus was tempted in the wilderness, he was ready to wait for God's counsel. And when Jesus returned from the wilderness, this patience bore fruit, for he returned in the power of the Spirit. So, as we continue in Psalm 106, much like in the case of the sin that we just looked at of discontentment, now we see the sin of jealousy and idolatry and examples of drawing back, like when the Israelites were reluctant to enter into the promised land, and of the sin of apostasy. Psalm 106 commends Phinehas' zeal in punishing those responsible for Israel's apostasy. It even says that when God stayed the plague, it was counted to Phinehas as righteousness. This is an important gospel handle here to grab a hold of. Since Jesus bore our punishment for sin in our place, now faith is credited to us as righteousness, just as it was for Abraham. And for this, we are truly thankful and praise God with joyful hearts on this Ascension Day 2024. May God bless you, and I will